Welcome to our devotional. Here is where we learn more about our Heavenly Father. Join us. You don't want to miss out on this blessing. Living Stones Church.
How did you come to faith in Jesus? Was it through a miracle? Was it through hearing the Gospels? Or was it by a friend or family member who showed God's love to you? Or was it through a logical argument? Many Christians have tried to use intelligence, evidence, and logic to show that Jesus is the one true God, the way, the truth, and the life. That there is a lot of evidence and good arguments out there. There is, in fact, an entire type of evangelism called apologetics, which is all about providing answers for why we Christians believe. How do we convince an atheist that Christianity is the way? Well, atheists love logic, right? They love evidence, they love things that make sense, things that are tangible and realistic. Well, let me show you an easy way to do it through logic. So first of all, you have to get them from atheism, that is a belief in no God, to deism, the belief in God in general. Now to do this, we use the best argument, creation itself. Creation is a marvel, and some might say a work of science and art. There are laws that govern the universe and its structure, and there are instructions that are able to create a human from a sperm and an egg. How can there be laws in the universe without a lawgiver? And how can there be instructions for life without an instructor? It's a no-brainer, right? How can all this be just a series of accidents? A lot of accidents. And if we're calling them accidents, there would have to be some kind of normal that makes them accidents, right? Well, hopefully, by now, your atheist friend is seeing the logic of God's existence. God may not be a man in the sky with a big beard, but we are helping to form a more accurate picture of who God is. An intelligent force that guides all things. But now your atheist friend might be asking, there are many gods out there, so many religions. How can you be sure that Jesus is the right one? A good question, and one that requires an answer. Well, let's break it down to a choice between pantheism and monotheism. Pantheism is a belief in many gods, and monotheism is a belief in one God. And I think the best logical argument here is that if there are many gods, who created those gods? There surely has to be an endpoint, right? There surely has to be one ultimate God above all gods. If you even have just two gods, then wouldn't one of them not ultimately be God? By very nature, the word God implies an ultimate source, an ultimate power, a power above all powers. Believing in many gods is ultimately a never-ending journey. And unfortunately, many of the gods out there are only interested in one thing: the God of war, the God of thunder, the God of rain. Believing in many gods is like carrying around a different phone for every app. You would be weighed down trying to manage all the different phones. Why wouldn't you just have one phone with all the apps? Why wouldn't you just have one God? So maybe now your friend is convinced. Yeah, one God makes sense. The other gods would not ultimately be God. So maybe one of the monotheistic religions makes the most sense. Now we've eliminated a lot of religions, and there are three main religions in the world: Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. Now things are getting interesting, but your atheist friend, or maybe now monotheistic friend, is still non-committal. The best thing to do now is make it a choice between two different religious groups: Judeo-Christianity and Islam. A comparison of their holy scriptures. The Jewish Christian scriptures were written by many authors over a period of well over 1,000 years and contain many prophecies that came true. The Quran is a revelation to one man, and the book was written in less than a 50-year period. One way to put it is, Would you rather trust the revelation of God to one man or the revelation of God to many men? If the atheist has done risk management training, he might choose to hedge his bets with Judeo-Christianity purely because of the numbers. Again, a logical choice. So now, there are just two choices. The difference between Christianity and Judaism. It is Jesus. It all comes down to Jesus. Is he the Son of God or not? Has the Messiah come, or are we still waiting? The most logical argument here could be, if God came down from heaven to earth and said he was God, performed miracles, read people's minds, healed the sick, created wine from water, raised the dead, would you be convinced that he was God? There is a lot that Jesus did to prove he was the Son of God, but believing in it is something that requires action. It's not just ticking a box on a survey. It requires a life transformation. To actually believe and take a step into the kingdom requires something outside the realms of logic. It requires faith. Faith in things we can't see. Faith in things too hard to predict. Faith in a knowledge that we only know a bit of. Logic can lead us to the door of Jesus, but faith is the key that opens that door. And the key is difficult for many people to find. So be kind to those that disagree with you, or those that are unwilling to take the step to believe. They might be convinced by logical arguments, but to take a step of faith takes courage, honesty, and humility. We forget what it was like for us to take that first leap of faith. It requires leaving behind the security of the things we know and are comfortable with. It requires an acknowledgement of the worst parts of us, those we are most ashamed. But the best thing is, Jesus is the answer to those things. When a non-believer trusts Jesus for the first time and opens the door, the first thing they will be greeted with is his love and forgiveness. You can show someone how to get to God's door through logic and good arguments. And this is fine. But they just might be waiting at the door for a while, maybe trembling in fear, maybe pacing up and down trying to work out what to say to greet the King. But one thing that isn't logical that you can say is, just once. Why don't you see what happens when you trust God? If Jesus is God, and if he died for you, wouldn't he be glad to see you? Wouldn't he be dying to meet you?
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you'll connect again for our next devotional. May God bless you.